All right, mic check, mic check.
Hello, hello.
Hey, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Rattati as well. Welcome everyone at home. It's a pleasure to be streaming about Eve Online every Saturday, but it's a special pleasure when we have the game director for Eve Online here. So first of all, CCP Rattati, welcome and thank you so much for sacrificing your Saturday evening to hang out with us.
Fine. Happy to be here.
So we are going to talk for about 45 minutes to an hour. First of all, sorry everyone for being about 10 minutes late. I was just telling Rotati, my computer crashed about 15 minutes ago, which is the worst thing that can happen just before you go online and stream for all of you. So let's hope it holds up for another 45 minutes, or this is going to be interesting. But so great to have you here, Rattati. We spoke 2 years ago, almost to the day, uh,
It's weird.
which
You said
is
it. He told me 2 years. I thought it was a year. So time flies.
time flies. Last time we spoke, we talked about resource redistribution. We talked about the dirty word of scarcity, as the community likes to call it. I know you don't use that word. But it was fun last time. So let's pick right up. I asked the community for some questions. I have a bunch of questions myself. I think it's a perfect time to be talking to you with the Excel add-in coming, with I don't know, a war going on, with production increasing again, with an expansion that just hit. So I think it's a good time. I I
Great
wouldn't
time.
I think I wouldn't be I wouldn't be speaking for the community though if we quickly address the elephant in the room that I think everyone is talking about this week, that is hanging out in various news sources surrounding Eve Online, and that's the 40 million investment that Andreessen Horowitz is investing into CCP Games to create a quote a triple A blockchain based game that is based in the Eve Online universe. So I'm sure that that was discussed hotly as well internally. So can I get your take on what does this mean for Eve Online? How are you preparing for what the community is thinking and maybe also throwing around in the last few weeks?
hmm Where to start? Let's start with the funding itself. So obviously, this is a VC funding project, and it's funded by external parties completely, and it's not funded at all with EVE Online revenues. So it's a completely separate standalone project, completely funded end to end with its own deliverables, own roadmap, and own team. So the streams simply do not cross at all. Um, there's a full leadership running it, and they've staffed completely up. Majority of the team is new hires, but also has a handful of current Eve developers that transferred over. And a handful of ex-CCP staffers that returned for this project, age literally from the start people.
Mhm.
So to gonna go into the like what it means to make a real AAA game in the EVE universe. So this has just been fascinating for us to watch. And frankly, amazing to be able to raise this money in the crypto environment as it is. So I think it's a fantastic thing to see, learn, monitor from our perspective. But there's an iron curtain between the projects for sure. Um, on the situations itself with uh, the Eve developers that moved over, those have been replaced or or we're looking for rehires. I think we've already rehired for them. They like I said, there's simply a handful, I would say.
Mhm.
less than 10 in total. So it did not have a disruptive, a big disruption on our team at all. So we are just happy to have another sibling in the office, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm. I think there's two concerns in the community as far as I understand it, and as far as I also have them myself, being a very active part of this is so one is sure, this is completely separate, but it's in terms of focus of CCP games. Eve Online has been your game for 20 years. If there's a shiny new AAA title that's based in the Eve universe, how can it not, how can it not detract your attention, or how can it not be a little bit bad for Eve?
You might think, but we have, for the last 3 to 4 years, been going through a bottoms-up strategic review of EVE Online itself, and we've gone through a remapping of our priorities inside of the game as well. We're building on the foundation of the economic reset, and then the strategic change to go into expansions was also part of this. So we have, in the last 18 months, I would say, completely changed how we work in EVE Online. We have a very clear roadmap for our 3 kind of main initiatives that we call them. And this new expansion strategy allows us to basically leapfrog and rotate talent and features and player value into these expansions. So the expansions are here to stay, and we have a really good, now we're basically just wrapping up the final pieces of what's going to be in the expansion in June, which is looking, I would say, incredible from my point of view. And I think I can speak for the team and hope for the players. The CSM has seen all of the content, so we are just on the racetrack running. If there's someone else like on the football field next to us, it doesn't really disrupt us, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And the other concern being that with blockchain technology, I think one criticism that is coming not from the crypto community, but more from the gamer community, is that they don't really see the advantage that blockchain technology would bring in terms of making it a better game. I think we all see the advantages of blockchain in terms of monetization of the game, but not necessarily the game itself. I know Hilmar talks a lot about the smart contract blockchain technology, and third-party development being more meaningful or better to handle. But I don't think anyone really understands how blockchain is going to make this a better game, and that's why people are skeptical in terms of your focused on it, and that's I think that's a big question mark that the community has.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not a crypto expert in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to the motivations, so I think it's easy to paint the picture that it's a money grab, but knowing the people working on it, it's technical innovation and being a part of something new and like where the world is heading. We've always done it with Dust 5 and 4, connecting PS3 to PC. Being in the second wave, or like whatever we call it, third wave of VR, when it might have become something. Like we raised money then too, to take up part of that revolution. It didn't pan out, but we tried because that's the kind of company we are. And that's the kind of mindset that Hilmar, as CEO, really has more than any of us, really. Like it's that kind of, I would say, visionary and boldly going where the world seems to be going, or even before the world is going there. We've been ahead of the curve a couple of times. So it is true from my point of view, what I get from the team when I listen to them is this even more agency, a bigger sandbox, the ability to develop into it, take these contracts outside of the game itself, just really expanding the ecosystem of it. And to me, that sounds like super interesting. I think the crypto aspect of it, I'm happy that it's in this game. And it was a very clear strategic decision to leave all of that out of EVE Online, just because of the player concerns, but also like our own concerns. Why mess with that at all? Let's try to do it on the side, prove it out, and see if anything interesting comes out of it. So I think it's the best way to do this, and I think it's a great way for CCP to maintain this kind of cutting edge innovation mentality. And I'm really happy they're doing it in this way exactly. I'll be honest, I wouldn't have wanted to deal with integrating blockchain into EVE Online, even if it just from technical perspective. So I'm very happy this is being done next to us.
Perfect. Thank you. I want to talk about EVE Online today, not about something else, but I felt wanted to at least
Oh, it's good.
kind
It's
of
good
talk
to
about
clarify.
what we're all wondering, because we're looking at a 40 million investment that we all are hoping is going towards the game that we all love to play, and then even realizing that it's a completely separate thing, and the 40 million wouldn't have been invested into EVE Online because that's not what Andreas and Horowitz wanted to do.
It's not how VCs work.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's. I think it's good to also talk about that. Like that money wasn't available for EVE Online,
No.
and would never have been. So it's a moot point to talk about. Like, shouldn't we spend it on EVE Online? It's not. It would not have been available. No one is raising money for a 20-year-old IP. So it's a growth business. This is the growth opportunity. This is what's happening right now. That's where you get the VC money. We have plenty of money that we reinvest into EVE Online, and I think you probably know this, or all of the people that monitor our annual reports. We've never paid dividends. All of our money goes into reinvested, like can't say the exact numbers, but it's in the tens of millions that we reinvest into EVE Online every year. So we don't need VC money. We have our own money.
Yeah, I mean your yearly revenue with EVE is more than 40 million. So
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about EVE Online.
Yes.
I'd like to start with a topic that is near and dear to my heart and to most people watching my stream, and that's the Microsoft Excel add-in that we just got to play around with in the beta that started a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure you're getting a lot of feedback and data, or at least I hope so that you're getting from it. We talked about it last week on my stream here. Looked at the example files that you've provided. It's shaping up to be great. I think one question that a lot of people have there is, what does this mean for the ESI? So is this going to, in the long run, replace the ESI? What's the vision for it?
So I'm super happy that the Excel is add-ins being received this well. And this is a passion project that started with a dinner conversation at a convention that turned into a prototype that turned into some Microsoft developers really being interested in helping us. So this has been a passion project from the heart, and from the start. And I was concerned that what we had, expectation management had gone, we'd lost control of it. But when we showed it to the CSM this spring or this winter, they were more than happy with the feature set. So I was relieved. But we built this to basically test and strengthen our own foundations as well. So that's why we have been using the ESI as the foundation. to know what the players are using and how much basically load it's creating, so that we can tactically separate things that we provide in the Excel and the SI specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, I would love to, and the ESI is basically just any public-facing API. It doesn't have to be the ESI forever. We might change how it works, but we're absolutely not disbanding or discontinuing any support to the third-party developers that we have been doing. It's a cornerstone of how we run our business. So, but I think the most important thing that we were trying to test was just like, can we authenticate? Can this all work really well? Because ultimately, this was a equality project. We wanted equal access to do stuff with the data that we provide. And just the hurdle of collecting all the CSVs from the MER and combining them, or knowing a web programmer, or being a web programmer that could talk to the ESI, it's just a threshold that left 90% out in the cold. So we really wanted to put more data into more hands. So we start with my information, like your authenticated information. And I think a reasonable next step would be to add pre-calculated public information, simply to reduce the scraping of our endpoints. So there's a lot of people who are asking for the same information like all the time, just to recreate their own market price history. So if we can provide that in either a specific endpoint that just does that, or in the Excel itself, I think that's a reasonable step to go. But then the rest of the endpoints, I think, and you know this, the market endpoint has been down for some time.
Since November, I'm counting the days.
What we realized, that it's a pretty vulnerable system. It's a very trusting system, and we need to figure out how to strengthen that before we kind of re-release. It is now completely on our like critical to-do lists to do this, but going forward, I think we are going to have to authenticate more endpoints to strengthen the security of the whole system.
So right now, you can't. So I know a lot of us were hoping that when the Excel beta hit, we would be able to hit the market history endpoint again. We know that's not the case now, presumably because it's for the same reason that it's down, and you're not even letting the Excel add-in hit it. I know this is difficult, but is there any sort of timeline that you can give? Is it going to be weeks? Is it going to be months for that to be back? Just because for people that are market maining EVE Online, I think the history is so crucial, because current prices are great, but to be able to look at where the market came from is even more important than where it is at right now.
I can't say, but I would be. I think I can promise it before the expansion. So but it's on the ship and ready critical feature list. So when it's ready, it can go out. But and I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but it's definitely before June.
And it's a question of strengthening it, because it was just going down under the amount of hits it was getting, right?
Yeah.
And so,
and I think in some cases it's simply a vulnerable point. We have been DDoS before, and people are always looking, or let's say not people, but people with bad intent are always looking for weaknesses in our system to cause damage or dissent.
So this was definitely malicious, not just mistakes in.
I think that's why it's still down.
Okay, all right. So in the long run, I think you've been talking about data democratization with the Excel add-in, allowing more people to build their own spreadsheets than are today. Is that so? That's a clear direction that you would want Eve to be in. Like, what do you think the big advantages of opening that data up to more? Is it involvement into the? Is it increased involvement? Is it reduced workload? What is it?
It depends on the user. So we went into this with the intent to, like, the first prototype was simply for a new player to be able to look up stuff about themselves, to kind of build up a character history and kind of knowledge of the fundamentals of EVE Online, like allow them to browse, figure out the connection between items, blueprints, whatever, and ships and skills. Uh, Kind of like a library of information, especially with all these like interesting click-throughs and links, hyperlinks that kind of tie it all together. Second, we wanted to create a kind of a simple guide to manufacturing. So to deepen the engagement for new players. A lot of new players opt out or don't opt in to try manufacturing at all, and simply sell or reprocess their their raw resources. We would love for new players to be interacting with the market, but we know that it's hard to find that margin. Like, when am I competitive, if ever? So we wanted to help the player figure out, the cost of the bill of materials, the possible margin, like in nearby markets, and then eventually, like, what would it look like with better skills? Like, am I able to make a profit margin on some item somewhere? So it's kind of onboarding manufacturing focused was the beginning, but all of the native kind of calculations that are available in this new Excel, which has been co-developed a lot with us. In the last, like, a lot of stuff that couldn't be done was passed straight to Microsoft, and then they kind of patched it up for us. So we're basically co-developing with Microsoft to make this even easier to use. And like, when you start using it and you learn the hotkeys and tab and like all these selections and using arrays properly, like, this becomes like insanely powerful for anyone. And we don't have to really build a lot of tools to make it so. So I think it onboarding first, but like, then see what the market maniacs do with it. That was the kind of the plan.
Yeah,
Like yourself.
I hope that group of players beyond the ones already building spreadsheets today and those that are never going to build spreadsheets. I think it's a question of how big is that group, and let's hope that that group is big, because then I think it could be a big impact. Because as you say, I think today doing industry without building a spreadsheet is basically insanity in EVE Online.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Which isn't great, but like,
No.
there's a lot of stuff to fix in EVE, and that's just not the priority at the moment. So if we can do this, second, maybe like social planning. So if we know that people in corporation managers are often kind of setting up like common goals, like, we're gonna build this Astra Hoots or whatever together, and everyone gets like a part of the job, so they end up in Google Sheets somewhere. Like, maybe this is a way to set up these corporation goals.
Sure. I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to move on to the next topic, and that's
Yes.
Plex. So
Yes.
I know a lot of people are concerned. Some are concerned about Plex being too expensive. Some are concerned about Plex being too cheap. But everyone's interested in the Plex price, right? So let me just quickly give the viewers some background that might not always think about these concepts. But basically, if you have a high Plex price, that means that it's very difficult to pay for your game time with in-game currency, and potentially that's costing you, Rattati, some monthly active users, maybe if it's a high Plex price. If on the other hand, if it's a high Plex price, then a lot of people it's very enticing to buy Plex with real cash, and that's injecting cash funds into the game that you can use for development. So obviously, it's a Plex is something that the price of Plex is very important to the players, but it's also very important to you as CCP. Let me take us into the development process there, or the decision making process. Is Plex something that you monitor, you look at every day, like I look at stock prices, or is it something that you just let happen and and it's basically player driven?
Plex is a signal, not something we try to affect directly. So we take heed if it goes above a certain threshold, and then we start we take a look at it, further look at it, as with dreadnought prices or anything in the game. If a lot of things have kind of warning signals, and we listen to them. We don't manage or drive towards a single price for Plex, if I'm honest. So everything you said is true. It's a very difficult relationship to predict and actually affect. So we monitor the situation, but we don't make any decisions based off it, if I'm honest. We don't try to manipulate the price, and we don't aim for a certain price, because basically the left hand and the right hand are very there's engagement, there's more people turning Plex into Omega, but the vice versa also is beneficial to us. So we just want it to be healthy. And I would say that what we realized in late 2022 was that we were seeing signs of market failure, and that's concerning. So we kept an eye on it and didn't react really to it. But that's the only thing that I would say is where we have to jump in. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very clear that there are market makers on Plex, people who inflate the price for their own profits, and that's something that we need to be very careful of going forward. So our goal is really to just make sure that there's a healthy supply. That's, I would say, the only thing that we are interested in. So that's why you may see a Plex sale, for example. It may mean that there's a low supply, not that there's a different a high Plex mm-hmm. price, for example.
So I think the big price increase phases that we had over the last 6 months was when we had what we in the community call Plexgating Sales. Not sure if you've come across that term, but it's New Eden Store Plex only sales where you have to buy Plex to take advantage of it, and that's clearly driven at taking some Plex out of the game or moving. I know you're a finance guy at heart, so it's taking.
You try to move. Velocity is good.
Well, the velocity is good, but you're also trying to move some of that deferred revenue, I think, over to the to your P&L.
That never crosses our minds. You can just forget that. That's always when Reddit says that, yeah.
I say that.
That's so wrong.
I say. You think? I mean, why? But why else? Why else? Why else would you have a 50% off skill extractor sale at 2 days before the quarter end? I mean, that's a massive sale that's never been there before. It's financially speaking, it's perfect for you.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in the last 12 months has been experimentation on what are the motives and motivations of the people who hold Plex, who want to buy Plex, who want to convert Plex. These are way more and diverse kind of audiences or types of people or players who hold and use Plex in this way. And we basically have been trying a lot of things just to kind of map out these behaviors.
Mhm.
We didn't previously have, for example, our own ability to have some of these nest sales that we've been seeing because we didn't have certain limits in the Nest store. We couldn't put in like one per account like that. Just we didn't have that ability in the store. So
Okay.
when we had that ability that we added somewhere like sometime last year, we started trying it out. Like, what does this do? Like, is there more demand for this on Plex than on Secure? Why is that? Like, what is the relationship between these? So there's been experimentation, and some maybe it looks schizophrenic, but there is a plan. There's a person that I trust running all of this. So we are mostly trying to affect the flow, like having just a healthy supply, demand, and flow of Plex is the most important thing. That it happens at the end of you won't believe me, but it's circumstance.
I'll believe you if you say so. I'll just ask, but I'll ask some more questions. And that's so if we're seeing like a massive, like a 50% off sale on skill extractors has a massive impact on the in-game economy, right? Because what it does, it shifts that whole, we call it skill farming equation. I don't know what you call it internally, but
Yep.
it's it's how much is a skill point worth? Is it worth it to basically to Plex another account to get out enough skill points to make it sustain itself or almost sustain itself? So that's a massive shift. Is that skill farming equation? Is that something that you take into consideration when making a decision like that about a massive sale?
I would say it's a part of the learning equation. Like, how do these two things affect each other? It's uh, very non-linear, and it's not always the same
Mm-hmm.
because there are big market movers that may behave differently. So most of these are um, experiments, or at least done to learn something.
Mm-hmm. And when you
And the
say
skill
big,
farming itself
mhm,
is it, it it's an avenue of activities that we don't want to interfere with too much.
mhm,
It's good that there's a healthy supply of SP coming from them. Um, but I would like to have better insight into how that ecosystem works, because I've been told that like plenty of times that now it doesn't even make sense to do it, but still people do it. So like there is a lot of, I would say, urban legends in this as well, and we're still figuring that out,
I
but we don't
basically
have
show
any
that
intent.
I
Yeah.
basically show that equation on my stream every weekend, and it's it for the longest time, like we're talking years ago, it was very profitable. Then for the last year or two, it wasn't. Now it's getting into that territory where it's profitable again because people have taken advantage of the big massive sales. So there was a sale on 1 month Omega for 300 Plex instead of 500.
Mm.
That was the big one in, I think, September or something. So that in itself makes it profitable in an instant. So that's uh, I think for those people that are doing it, that or at a large scale, I guess those are the people that you're calling market makers. Um,
Yes.
yes. So
And
what?
not bad necessarily, just that they are.
Mhm,
And these create interesting ebbs and flows in this market. There are no natural things that happen in this. So in some way we're 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 creating, I would say, like external factors with when this happens. Okay, now it's profitable, and then it's interesting. If it never changes, it's not interesting. It's just a money printing machine. So I think a lot of these are they have an effect on each other, and so it's good to shake them up a bit as well, I would say. Keep
so
you on your toes, market buy.
are you is that like a if you're looking at certain people that have large impacts or that are playing it in a certain way, is that more like an archetype of player that you're looking at, or
Yeah,
is that your
yes,
like
yeah.
handful of players that you know
No,
are
it's not on player names. It's more archetypes.
okay? Um, let's jump to the topic that we talked about 2 years ago, and that's resource redistribution.
Yep.
You've gone, I mean, pretty much full circle. I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna say through hell, but it was, it certainly wasn't it wasn't easy for you and your team. I think the last 2 years, but you've emerged on the other end. Are we there now? Are we there where you want resources in EVE Online want to be in terms of the supply, the demand, the production that it allows? Are we there?
No, we are close, I would say, but not there. But from a from a milestone point of view, let's say with the current resources and how the game works, I think we are close, and I think we'll be very close by the next expansion. There are a handful of things that we plan to address that I think will eliminate most of the issues and the bottlenecks that we're looking at today. And I really can't wait for that. We have been kind of pruning or tuning uh, the last expansion with the moon change, and then the new border anomalies. And this is basically the first step in redistribution, when we started to seed more and diverse resources back into specific places, not just like on a global scale. We want to have more geographical and topological diversity, and this is a part of that. So we have all the tools now that we need for the current ecosystem, but we have been exploring what new awesome things to add in the future, and I think that's going to be let's just call it the next level of industry.
That was going to be my
Not
follow-up question, and you said last time that one of the goals was to make the regions of space more unique, and I think we've seen some impacts there in low sec versus high sec versus null sec versus wormholes. I don't know if we've seen a lot in the space of regions of null sec being different enough for it to allow strategic objectives to change, where people want a certain part of space because there's different or maybe even fluctuating resources. Is that something that's still on your list, or is that something where you feel like you've done that already?
No, we're not there yet, and I think let's just call it the next industry next gen, or V3, or whatever you call it, or might want to call it. That would be kind of changing the more of the fabric, or allowing players to change more of the fabric, I would say. So we have been alluding to this in the expansion and the lore. It's not happening right now, but I think there's a cool narrative that ends in something very interesting and a game changer for industry. But in the meantime, I would say that like we need to remove 3 or 4 bottlenecks. We need to like take a look at like some of the final resources that are kind of like missing from the they're not like in enough supply or in too much supply, so like a little bit more tuning. But we've been working with the CSM on this, and I think we'll be looking at a very efficient, good market in June.
Okay. A game changer in industry sounds very exciting. Is there anything else you can say to that? Is that in terms of resources, or in terms of blueprints, or items, new items?
It it's a it's how the player affects their environment, I would say. Like it's the, I would call it terraforming, if
Mm-hmm.
if that's the way. But terraforming through cost, through investment, through risk and reward, and through objectives in space. So like
Okay.
not something that's uh, just built to last. It would need to be defended.
And so potentially, therefore, influencing the available resources in a region through something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. So you're talking about bottlenecks. I'm assuming stuff like Isogen or Megasite might be on your list of things that are not available enough supply, or that might even be hampering um, production. Is that something then, is that something you look at and say, okay, the price is getting out of hand, we have to change something? Or how is that decision process going?
It's a mixture. So I would. It's interesting because it's a segue into the MER.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen a few new slides in the
Love them.
MER,
Yeah.
and we have basically, and I would love to drop his name, but I don't know his CCP name. I was trying to find it
CCP
before.
estimate.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's him.
Yeah.
We've been working on supply chain analysis and bottleneck analysis, as well as a lot of kind of baseline um, economic behaviors that we've simply been missing. And this is reaping a lot of rewards. So this investment, you're basically seeing the first parts of it in the MER,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll hopefully see the results of this analysis and how we use it in our economic management going forward. We should be seeing that in June.
Okay.
So that allows us to find whether there's a supply break or a demand, like lack of demand, and which item, which blueprint, etc. So I'm looking very much forward to this.
That sounds good. Speaking of the MER, so we can also see wormhole export data now more clearly, and it's
I
very
think there's a
interesting.
reason for that graph.
Yeah. So we can basically say that the only thing that matters in wormholes, you forget gas, forget basically C1 through C4. Those are fun, but when you're talking about the generation of wealth in wormholes, then you're talking about C5, C6, blue loot, or the 25 trillion that gets generated there every month. Is that a problem, Rattati? Is that like it's a significant portion of the ISK influx into the monetary supply of EVE Online? So is that too much? How much is too much?
How much is too much? Is it available to everyone? Yes.
No.
Do I then care?
It is technically, yes.
It's
Sure.
technically available to
Yeah.
everyone,
Mm-hmm.
so like go get it if you want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like anything that is in a kind of dominant, like I don't want one thing or activity to dominate the others. I'm always working with multiple pillars of a healthy ecosystem, and I think this is one of the like kind of final pieces of the puzzle. We kind of left wormholes and C5, C6s out of the equation while we focus on the other things. But now I think it's time to. It's not necessarily now, but I think it's clearly there's a signal that we start need to look at, and specifically just the risk of it. I think it's I don't like it when it's risk free
Mm-hmm.
or relatively risk free. If it's solved and the moneymaker, then and hard to interact with by enemies, um, it starts to worry me.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else, I was looking at the just like refreshing.
Yeah.
Everything else looks pretty solid. Like we're looking at mining, it's back. It's back to a good state, not like the crazy state. Bounties are fine. Way more than fine actually. Like concerningly high if I'm looking at it. Um, I think the sleeper components are kind of showing a clear signal now. But the overall wealth generation of the economy, like the GDP, is vastly improved. So just from a year ago, let me take a look.
I mean, certainly production levels
Go
are
back
higher
a
now than they
year.
were a year ago, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We're up 25, we're up 50% almost year on year in GDP as we calculate it internally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the lowest percentile wallets as well. They've doubled in the last year or two,
Mm-hmm.
which was a part of what we wanted to do. We wanted to kind of move a little bit more of the like low level harvesting into new players and poor, and they've risen significantly higher than all of the other percentiles. So this is all looking relatively healthy, and I think we're going to be in a really really good healthy place post June.
One thing that hasn't recovered significantly from my point of view is ISK velocity. So it has recovered a little bit over the last few months, but then again, we can see it in the number now with Plex and without Plex, which is very helpful. So thank you CCP Estimate for providing that as well. But ISK velocity, if you look at it over 3, 4, 5 years, it's been the trend is down clearly. Is that a concern to you? So for everyone that doesn't know what that is, it's the amount of times ISK changes hands within a month. We're at like 0.4, 0.5, where it used to be maybe 1.
I don't know that it's a I'm not a believer in this number being that important, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
Velocity ISK has loads of real life things or factors that have affected and its importance in a real economy, but we don't have interest. We don't have a lot of things that real economies don't have, and I think it's not the one that I would look at primarily,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely not something that we use to make decisions. It's an interesting number to me, but I'm looking at more on inflation and these kind of macro movements of simply the the ability to make money and the ability to create. And I think and the incentives to destroy. Those are the three things that I look at.
I guess the reason I think that ISK velocity is important in that context is that it does show that more people are sitting on their ISK rather than pumping it back into the economy, being whether it's buying stuff, producing stuff, trading stuff, anything, right? So that and in terms of inflation, it is part so the inflation is basically the product between the ISK velocity and the money supply. So I think in the end, the reason that we don't have rampant inflation right now in Eve with an increasing money supply is because the ISK velocity is rather low, right? So I mean, I'm not saying that it's doom and gloom right now. I think a higher ISK velocity would certainly indicate that there's people are doing more in Eve Online, which would be a positive thing.
Yeah. I have two theories. The old velocity is definitely inflated as well. Like we had the ramp at botting, and back in the highest places, where they would basically be spending on Plex and ships as well. And there's been a huge change in botting in EVE Online, um, down by 80% or something, as far as as the numbers we can see. So those have always been inflating all of these numbers throughout the years. So I think it's something to take into account. You can see it in the Eve price and the ISK prices as well. Like the spike of 1819 is clearly a botting, and you can see the 2019. That's basically when we started cracking down on botting heavily, banning huge cartel like ISK making cartels, which makes it popped down by like went from 4.5, I guess, to 2-ish, 2.8, something like this. This was a pure rampant botting, out of control. So I wouldn't look at the old numbers to be like precise or at least good indicators of what it used to be as healthy. And the other thing that I don't know how actually would be represented, but I know that there's a lot of war bonds to be paid, and there are a lot of people who owe a lot of things. So I don't know how it looks in the numbers, but I know that some of these corporations, alliances, they're owed trillions.
Yeah, they are.
It's probably not entering the market as we see it. So I would those are my theories at the moment.
Okay. So some quick fire questions to round things up here.
Yep.
Abyssal battlegrounds. We used to see them a lot at the events. We haven't seen them recently. Are they coming back? Are you still doing them?
We're doing a little bit of change in how we run events. And we're kind of in the middle of that. And I really can't speak to it, but I'm assuming that that's a part of it. We wanted to focus a bit of the team over to the narrative arc campaigns, kind of bolder, more creative, more more bespoke and innovative content. So I'll just go check on this. This may be kind of in a lull as we transition.
And I mean, you've said that you're going to replace some of the. I mean, we saw that with the what is it, the Guardians Gala this year, that you replaced it with a storyline event. There was communication around that. Is there going to be other events that we're used to that are going to be replaced by storyline events? Like, should we expect some of them to not happen?
I think the ones that we are 100% committed to are on the roadmap. It's
okay.
Definitely Capsule Year Day and Halloween.
Yeah, and Christmas. Yeah,
or Christmas
holiday. Yeah.
But I actually I prefer that they're in the storyline, like going forward, but still obviously meaningful and full of content. I think it's a much better use of our resources to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's changing things up and the events are same or better, then it's a win for sure. There's always going to be people that miss certain events because they've specialized in it. I think overall it's a win. At least I see it as that. I'm going to take a question straight from Twitch chat because I'm seeing it here and I had it on my list as well. Capital prices. Huge issue over the last year. People were, they were not profitable to produce, and it was a big point of contention for the EVE community. The current price of capitals, is that where you want them to be, or are there changes coming?
That's one of the bottleneck issue is supposed to improve that. They're still too high, in my opinion. So plan for cheaper capitals. You
heard it here first. There's going to be some panic buying and panic selling right now.
Obviously.
And there was one question that I discussed last week on my stream, and that was the whole question around like strategic objectives in EVE Online. So I know it's you could talk an hour alone about what are the reasons to go to war over certain regions. We touched on it earlier, that is resources, but like the overall like NPSI fleets and just fighting over just for the sake of fighting rather than resources or another strategic objective. Of course, there has to be room for both because both are favored by large chunks of the player base. But what's your take on that? Is that something that you would rather take into the direction of more strategic objectives, or are you saying no? I mean, we're totally fine with 80% of the fights being rather just for shits and giggles.
There's a pyramid that needs to be healthy. You need those epic fleet fights that kind of drive the ultimate showdowns. They're not the most fun to the participants.
Mhm.
So I don't know that more mega wars, because they kind of tire you out too, are the best thing for the game, but they need to exist with a very regular cadence. So you always want to have incentives to do so, but mostly these have been pride and animosity in the past. Like, they haven't really been about resources. I think we can improve the kind of evergreen content, which we're basically doing now with enlistment. So now, okay, let's have something that's like pure fighting. Let's just like it's a casual thing. Let's go fight. Let's go kill. It's a good thing. And if there's a healthy environment in low sec, there's also camping opportunities on either side to intercept those. So like having that heart of faction warfare like vibrant and healthy is super important to us, and having people being able to enter from nullsec. We want to bring this kind of gameplay even closer into nullsec, so that like you don't have to go into lowsec. So in some way, kind of how NPC null could be behaving. Like, is there some kind of evergreen war that nullsec can actually participate in without it like starting to take over their own territory? So something closer. So I want to bring the fight closer to people, but then also make sure that I would say combat bottlenecks are also removed. It's not just about the incentive, but it's also about the meta. And there is a bit of a structure, carrier, tether meta that's just kind of, we're all done and done with. We can't start changing it right now in the middle of a war, but that's definitely something that we're like, it's always top of our mind. Like, we cannot have this type of conquest saw mechanics become stale and kind of predetermined almost. So that's basically on our kind of mid roadmap, is to look at these. We're always trying to see if there's like a simple way to improve these, and then add more incentive. We are missing a part of the incentive structure, which is basically immediate income through conquest.
Yeah.
We always require the return on investment, but there's no immediate payback, and I think that's completely missing from the game. And I'm not saying
that's
like
that's the same for any PvP really. There's the economic equation of PvP is off, right? Because they're even small gangs roaming, they're never doing it for profit. They're mostly doing it for glory.
Yes. So we want to create some kind of incentivization. There's loads of interesting ideas, putting more value in wrecks, for example, so you can harvest a battlefield.
Yes.
There is a very interesting planet population idea that has been coming up. What does it mean to hold advantage? Like, is that some kind of way to earn money in null or in null NPC? So I think we need to have that, like the king of the hill kind of, it just starts running to you if you own the system. And I think that's like completely missing. That would create a lot of more border conflict and kind of switching sides, tug of war kind of gameplay.
Perfect.
But I think
that sounds great.
We're all working on it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Rattati, we're at the full hour of the interview. I would have just two more questions. Is that all right?
Yeah.
One question is so the current war that is kicking off, or that is raging right now. It's about renting in nullsec. Now, technically, running a sandbox, you have to be I guess, impartial on it. But what's you personally? What's your take on renting in nullsec? And of course, it's not really about rent. I mean, I know that the war. So just for Twitch chat, we all know that it's not really. It's really just about hubris again. But renting, Rattati.
Like you said, you can't control it, but I think I think it's because there's no natural benefit from systems just owning them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and I think some incentive on that would make it way more interesting. Like having a choice whether to have a renter or, like I said, like having an NPC population, which is kind of like a renter. I think there's a way to do that. I don't know if that's better for the game, because then, like, where did the renters go? How do they start to establish their presence? And I don't know that renters are just renters because they want to be renters, or are they renters who are trying to get a foothold into nullsec and just learning how it works? So do we need like a new mover's advantage kind of into nullsec, like a place to learn the ropes? Because if you just come in, you pop down a citadel, and you're blown up immediately, and you're nothing to show for it, I think it's a very hard thing to do. So I'm not sure what renting, like whether renting is a problem or a different problem. But I think it's very interesting to add a layer that kind of challenges that the passive income, like purely passive income, and see what happens then. So that's basically what might work. And then the renters actually might go into the renters who are trying to get a foothold, they might go to a place far away and kind of rely on that NPC income while they get get everything up and running, build up their you know, whatever you call it, ATMs,
Mm-hmm.
and start making money and building up their infrastructure, because they have no way to make money in the very beginning. So I think this will be very interesting. But we have also been doing a lot of kind of deep dives with CSM on this. Casimir specifically has been vocal about stuff like this, and it's really fun to kind of go through the archetypes of nullsec solve holders and their kind of
Definitely.
incentives and motives.
Yeah, sure. And the last question is more of a personal one related to what we discuss a lot on my channel, and that's keep stars in HiSec. It's an evergreen as well. The Tranquility Trading Tower and Perimeter, for example, is that just something that you've come to accept, or that is going to be there forever, or is there going to be a threat for an internal threat for the Tranquility Trading Tower and Keepstars on HiSec going forward?
This goes into my I don't like things with no risk,
yeah,
and that creates reward. It's one of my pet peeves, and I've stated it multiple times. I think they have no place in Excel structures have no place in HiSec, but nothing's happening right now.
Okay.
It's the same thing with filamenting out of wormholes. I did not like that. It broke the fabric of the game, and I think this is one of those things. And I think jump freighters really do the same thing. And I've said that before. It there's something wrong with that. But without a better solution, we're not gonna do anything.
All right. So they're safe for another year, you'd say.
I'm trying to say nothing about nothing, so I don't cause markets to crash. And
well, you've been quite successful in making them less meaningful through broker fees, fee changes. So I think you've cut their income significantly, which now that we know how much C5 and C6 wormholes make, that makes the triple T look like child's play anyway.
Yeah, I think it's there are easier ways to make money, but I think it's yeah.
I think they will destroy themselves before you will destroy them.
The problem is that they can't meaningfully be destroyed. I honestly think that a triple timer in HiSec would never, like, it just can't be done. That's my problem. I honestly think no one can blow it up.
No, they will not blow it up, but they will. Somebody will. It will be a diplomacy thing internally imploding. Anyway, all right, Rattati, time flies when we talk. Let's. My request to you would be, let's not make it another 2 years till you're back. So I'm going to try to make you come back.
Let's catch up in June and see what the.
Yes, that would be amazing. Is there anything you'd like to say to the community before we go?
No, we are all very happy. I think the uprising expansion really kind of kicked the dev team into gear. And I think it kind of, we see it in the activity engagement and daily users that we're still holding strong, which is something we were really hoping would happen. And I encourage people to definitely try out Faction Warfare Enlistment. This is a huge opportunity for CEOs that lack something fun to do for their players in the normal day-to-day. And absolutely a topic from last FanFest, the LP ecosystem is something that we're heavily investing in going forward. So that should strengthen the I would say the fundamentals of both the corporation, wealth generation, and the whole ecosystem overall.
Perfect.
So
thanks. Then good. Yeah.
Fly and die in Faction Warfare.
We'll do. All right. Rattati, thanks again for spending your part of your Saturday evening with us, and I will see you soon. We're gonna take for everyone in stream. I'm gonna take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back for the after show. All right.
All right.
Bye bye.